Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Emergence of Police Force. Emergence of Police Force. The term police designate that executive civil force of a state to which is entrusted the duty of maintaining public order and of enforcing the regulations for prevention and detection of crime. It is a civil organization established by authority for maintaining the essential tranquility of the state and the security of its citizens in their lawful occupations. It is of high antiquity and has place alike in Egyptian, Greek, and Roman law. In Rome, however, it was not until the time of Augustus, 63 BC to AD 14, the first Roman emperor, that the police became a special institution in the city. In this way, the concept of the police force as a protective and law enforcement organization developed from the use of military bodies as guardians of the peace, such as the Praetorian Guard of ancient Rome. Praetorian Guard. Praetorian Guard. The Praetorian Guard was the bodyguard of the ancient Rome emperors. By the 2nd century BC, the bodyguard of a Roman general was known as the Praetorian cohort. But Augustus, 63 BC to 14 AD, the first Roman emperor in 27 BC, instituted the Praetorian Guard as a separate force by organizing 9 cohorts, each consisting of 500 men, under the command of a prefect called the Praetorian Prefect. Praetorian Prefect. Thus, the police became a special institution in the city. The Praetorian Guard, being the only large permanent body of troops allowed in Rome itself or near the city, soon acquired great political power. Members served 16 years, receiving special privileges and pay. They gradually began to exercise their political power in an unscrupulous manner, deposing and elevating emperors at their pleasure. In AD 193, after the assassination of Emperor Publius Helvius Pertinax, they sold the throne to Didas Severus Julianus. In the same year, the guard was reorganized by his successor, Emperor Lucius Septimius Severus, AD 146 to 211. However, Emperor Constantine the Great, 285 AD to 337, abolished it in 312 AD. The Roman achieved a high level of law enforcement which remained in effect until the decline of the empire. Upon the fall of Rome, all traces of police administration disappeared under barbarian rule, and there was the onset of the Middle Ages. Beginning in the 5th century, policing became a function of the heads of fiefdoms and principalities in the Middle Ages. Transformations during various centuries. Transformations during various centuries. During the Middle Ages, policing authority, particularly in England, was the responsibility of local nobles on their individual estates. Each noble generally appointed an official known as a constable to carry out the law. The constable's duties included keeping the peace and arresting and guarding criminals. For many decades, constables were unpaid citizens who took turns at the job, which became increasingly burdensome and unpopular. The police administration was only revived in the ordinances of Charles Magne, AD 742 to 1814. These ordinances contained a large number of police regulations concerning weights and measures, tolls, markets, the sale of food, grain, and cattle, the burial of the dead, and measures to be taken in time of famine and pestilence. The breakout of anarchy on the death of the Emperor of the West destroyed all these. But soon after the settlement of the Normans in France, 1911 AD, that enterprising race established a highly repressive police system calculated to restore public safety at the expense of public liberty. This system formed the basis of the police code introduced by William the Conqueror AD 1027 to 87, the first Norman king of England. He invaded England in 1066 AD prior to the Normans' conquest, and for some time thereafter, the system of frank pledge in Old English law, a system in which units composed of 10 households were held responsible for one another's conduct, was of general obligation in England. This provided that each district tithing, a unit consisting of 10 households in the system of frank pledge, should be divided up into associations of 10 persons who were jointly answerable for the good behavior of or damage done by any one of themselves. It seems probable, so far as London is concerned, that the existing police regulations of the Saxon kings 1066 AD were modified perhaps by an infiltration of Norman ordinances. These were continued after the conquest. The charter of William the Conqueror to the city, dated 1078 AD, is still known in the annals of time as, I acquaint you that I will ye be all law worthy as ye were in King Edward's days. An ordinance of the 13th year of Edward I, 1239 to 1307, set out in the Liber Albus, enacted that strict watch and ward should be kept in London by strong men with good arms for maintaining of the king's peace. In 1585 AD, an act was passed for the better governance of the city and borough of Westminster, and this status was reenacted and extended in 1737 AD, to be succeeded in 1777 AD by another act containing wider and stricter provisions. By the mid 16th century, wealthy citizens often resorted to paying deputies to assume their turns as constables. As this practice became widespread, the quality of the constables declined drastically. In 1663 AD, the city of London began paying watchmen, generally old men who were unable to find other work, to guard the streets at night. Until the end of the 18th century, the watchmen, as inefficient as they were, as well as a few constables, remained the only form of policing in the city. In France, during the 17th century, King Louis XIV, 1638 to 1715 AD, maintained a small central police organization consisting of some 40 inspectors who with the help of numerous paid informants, supplied the government with details about the conduct of private individuals. The king could then exercise a kind of summary justice as he saw fit. This system continued during the reigns of Louis XV, 710 to 74 AD, and Louis XVI, 1754 to 93 AD. After the French Revolution, 1789 to 1799 AD, two separate police bodies were set up, one to handle ordinary duties and the other to deal with political crimes. During the 17th and 18th centuries, colonial America also relied on the sheriff, the constable, and the night watch for police protection. The sheriff, appointed by the governor of a colony, was the most important law enforcement officer in the county. His duties included law enforcement, tax collection, and the maintenance of public facilities. The constable had similar responsibilities, although his jurisdiction was limited to towns and cities. The night watch was charged with the responsibility of protecting the municipality from fires, crime, and suspicious persons. Sir Robert Peel's Foundation. The inability of watchmen and constables to curb lawlessness, particularly in London, led to a demand for a more effective force to deal with criminals and to protect the populace. Robbery and violence were rampant everywhere. Highwaymen infested the roads. Footpads lurked in the streets, while, but too often, both watchmen and innkeepers were accessories to the commission of crime. At the commencement of the 19th century, it was computed that there was one criminal to every 22 of the population. Such was the state of affairs when, in 1829 AD, Sir Robert Peel, 1788 to 1850 AD, laid the foundation of that organization on which is based the existing metropolitan police system. It became the world's first modern organized police force. At first, it encountered much opposition and was denounced as an insidious attempt to enslave the people by arbitrary and tyrannical methods. This unfavorable impression, however, soon diminished, especially as the conviction of criminals and speedy reduction in the number of offences evidenced the efficiency of the new force. Subsequent acts of parliament extended the system throughout Great Britain. The statutes passed in 1839 AD and 1840 AD permitted the formation of a paid county police to be appointed by the justices of the peace for the county. The Police Act 1856 AD made the existence of an adequate force compulsory throughout England and Wales, while in Scotland the Police Act 1857 AD and the Burgh Police Scotland Act 1892 AD provided and regulated a satisfactory and sufficient police force throughout its countries and burghs. The Metropolitan Police Force was guided by the concept of crime prevention as a primary police objective. It also embodied the belief that such a force depended on the consent and cooperation of the public, and the idea that police constables were to be civil and courteous to the people. The force was well organized and disciplined, and after an initial period of public skepticism, became the model for other police forces in Britain. Several years later, the Royal Irish Constabulary was formed, and Australia, India, and Canada soon established similar organizations. Other countries, impressed by the success of the plan, followed suit until nations throughout the world had adopted police systems based on the British model. Virtually all of the nation's 3,000 counties have police forces, with most of these directed by an elected sheriff. Kinds of police. kinds of police. Now there are local, district, county, state and provincial and federal police agencies in the United States and Canada. Each agency is responsible only to the officials of its division of the government. No central agency controls the police system, but all police agencies cooperate and use nationwide radio and teletype facilities to work with each other. They also exchange information on criminals and report crime statistics. In addition to public police forces supported by taxes, private police and private detective agencies also do special police work in most of the cities. For example, privately hired industrial policemen guard factories and railroads. Other private police forces may protect hotels, stores, office buildings, and private estates, etc. Local police forces vary in size depending on the type and size of the community they serve and the number of people in it. A police department may consist of one town marshal or it may have more than 24,000 men and women, as in New York City. An average police force has about two policemen for every 1,000 persons in the community. Large cities are usually divided into precincts, districts, each with its own police station. Police in smaller cities or towns operate from a single station called police headquarters. Most police departments are organized along the same general lines. The head of the department may be known as the chief, commissioner, director, superintendent, or captain commanding. Commissioned officers ranking below him are in order to importance the deputy inspector, captain, lieutenant, and sergeant. Non-ranking officers are called patrolmen, officers, or privates. County police powers extend throughout the county, except in incorporated towns and cities that have their own police forces. The sheriff is usually the chief law enforcement officer in the county. He has charge of the county jail and its prisoners. A sheriff may have one deputy or hundreds. In southern and western areas of the United States, the sheriff's office conducts full scale police operations. Most northeastern states limit the sheriff's duties to civil matters. Some counties have regular police forces headed by a chief of police rather than a sheriff. State police. All states have either state police or state highway patrol forces. State police have full police powers throughout the state. State highway patrols may have full police powers or they may have authority to enforce only traffic laws. A commissioner or superintendent appointed by the governor heads the state law enforcement agency. State police are often called troopers. State police are often called troopers because in early days they were organized along military lines, many rode horses. Federal police agencies track down violators of various federal laws. They usually work closely with local, county, and state police. Now, the growth of industries, the increasing population, and the widespread use of the automobile brought many changes in police work. The police adopted new methods, including mobile patrols, air patrols, radio communications, training programs, and the use of laboratory techniques in crime investigations. Disadvantages of a police career include long hours, relatively low pay, and sometimes great danger. But police officers can find satisfaction in devoting themselves to public service. In the late 19th and early 20th century, inefficiency and corruption dominated police work. The primary source of the problems was the political machines that controlled most city governments. By the 1920s, a campaign to professionalize the police began to emerge. With professionalization came the demand for better selection of police officers, centralization of commands, more technology for aiding crime prevention, and the elimination of politics from policing. These reforms slowly occurred during the 20th century. Now, every country of the world has its own police. Its general view is given in the next chapter. Thank you.